One Piece is finally coming back on April 6th, and yeah, it's been a rough 6 months without it. Some of us are legit losing it, so I'm dropping this Egghead arc recap to save your sanity. It's everything that went down before the hiatus hit. We needed this Egghead recap before the hype train takes off again. So Nami's gone full savage mode, locking a beat-up Luffy in a cage cause he yeeted the ship over a waterfall like it's a TikTok stunt gone wrong, endangering the whole squad. Again, Jinbei's like, chill sis, we're all good, but Nami's not having it. But that wasn't even the worst part. They got the newspaper and realized the world went absolutely wild while they were busy in Wano. Cobra dead, Vivi missing, Luffy, being Luffy, immediately wanted to go full rescue mission, but Zoro shut it down, saying Vivi could handle herself unless she was actually in danger. Meanwhile, Luffy couldn't believe for a second that Sabo would kill Cobra, which led to him revealing his dream to the crew for the first time. Their reactions, a mix of shock, awe, and Sanji straight up saying Luffy's brain needed to be checked. Usopp thought it was impossible, but Luffy hit back with the ultimate confidence maybe the Pirate King could pull it off. Frankie wasn't about to waste time, though, saying they needed that last road poneglyph ASAP. But Robin reminded them it wouldn't be easy since its location had been a mystery for ages. Over at Sphinx, Marco got dropped off by the Red Hair Pirates, but before that, he had a little nostalgia moment. Back in Wano, Yamato decided not to join the crew, choosing instead to stay and protect Wano from future threats. Marco then said his goodbyes to the Straw Hats, and he, Luffy, and Jinbei reminisced about their first meeting back at Marineford. Marco even said Ace would have been hyped to see how far Luffy had come. Meanwhile, over on Karibari Island, Buggy was catching hands literally. Turns out, Cross Guild wasn't even his idea. Crocodile and Mihawk created it, but thanks to some classic Buggy nonsense. The world thought he was the boss. Flashback time, Crocodile called up Mihawk while dodging Marines, suggesting they team up, and Mihawk, being the world's most dangerous introvert, somehow agreed. Then, when Buggy was about to get wrecked by the Marines, Crocodile showed up not to help, but to collect his debt. Buggy, desperate, offered to work as Crocodile's servant, but his goofy subordinate slapped his face on the Cross Guild poster like he was the mastermind. The world government saw it, lost their minds, and declared Buggy one of the 4 emperors. Now, Crocodile had a 1.96 billion bounty, Mihawk over 3.59 billion, and Buggy a ridiculous 3.18 billion. Crocodile was furious and started beating up Buggy on sight, but Mihawk, in full I don't care mode, pointed out that having Buggy as their figurehead might actually work in their favor. And Crocodile, though annoyed, agreed. Finally, over at Amazon Lily, the place was a mess after a marine invasion. Gloriosa was stressing, saying they'd never been hit this hard before, but Boa Hancock, she had bigger priorities instead of worrying about the Marines. She casually dropped that she should just marry Luffy, which had Gloriosa absolutely done with her nonsense. Kobe and his Marine squad pulled up to Amazon Lily with the brand new Seraphim cyborgs, and let's just say, things went from 0 to 100 real quick. The Kuja were shook when they saw a mini Hancock-looking robot, but then Blackbeard showed up, ready to snatch her devil fruit as if that wasn't chaotic enough. A Seraphim that looked like a young Mihawk slashed at Teach. Hancock used her powers to turn everyone except Kobe and Blackbeard into stone, but Teach grabbed her. Canceling her ability, they hit a deadlock if he killed her. Everyone would stay statues forever, and his new fruit would be useless. Just when he was about to risk it anyway, Rayleigh rolled up, flexing his legend status, and told Blackbeard to pack it up. Teach wasn't trying to fight Dark King himself, so he bounced, and Hancock reversed the petrification. Later, Rayleigh admitted he bluffed. If it came to a real fight, he wasn't sure he could have beaten Blackbeard. Meanwhile, out at sea, the Marines were tracking Egghead Island, but Kobe, Blackbeard snatched him up and his status was officially MIA over in the Kamabaka Kingdom. The Revolutionary Army was relieved to hear Sabo was alive, but Dragon was not vibing with the news that he allegedly offed King Cobra. He told Sabo they were gonna have words if that was true. Then Kuma, now free, was about to drop some major tea when Sabo called in. The Marines were listening in, and they tracked him to Lulusia, a kingdom that had recently revolted. The 5 elders basically said, "Unlucky bro, because the next thing you know, a giant mystery weapon in the sky vaporized the entire island in an instant. No traces, no survivors, just gone. Oh, and the world government, they straight up pretended Lulusia never even existed." Back with the Straw Hats, they were sailing through an icy wasteland when they spotted someone trapped inside a giant water vortex. Zoro cut it open, and out popped Jewelry Bonnie, looking like a little kid. Before they could even process that, a massive metal shark, yes. A mecha shark attacked the Sunny, sending Luffy, Chopper, and Bonnie flying into the sea. Jinbe went full lifeguard mode while Frankie tried to steer them to safety. But then the shark fired torpedoes and capsized the ship. Just when things couldn't get worse, a giant mecha appeared and straight up punched the shark. Meanwhile, over at Marine Base G14, Helmeppo was out here begging to go save Kobe from Blackbeard's clutches, but Rear Admiral Gruss wasn't about to make moves without orders. Back on Egghead Island, Jinbe got Luffy, Chopper, and Bonnie to safety, where Bonnie casually revealed they were standing in the lab of the one and only Dr. Vegapunk, a place supposedly 500 years ahead of its time. She had business with Vegapunk, but her ship got chomped by the mecha shark before she could even get there. Once inside, The crew lost their minds over futuristic wonders, floating aliens, giant robots, and even giant desserts, only to realize they were all holograms. Luffy, being Luffy, punched one and got decked in return. Then, a huge food machine caught their attention, and they went feral over it. While they were stuffing their faces, a robotic girl pulled up, explaining the tech, including gloves that let people touch holograms. Then she hit them with the biggest bombshell. She was Dr. Vegapunk. Bonnie was like, "Yeah, no, I know the real one, you're capping." Meanwhile, the mecha that saved them from the shark lifted the Sunny out of the water, and another woman stepped out, also claiming to be Dr. Vegapunk. The Straw Hats completely mind blown. Lilith came in hot, claiming to be Vegapunk and demanding the Straw Hats hand over their treasure. But Robin and Zoro weren't buying it. Robin straight up said, "Isn't Vegapunk an old man?" And Lilith had to clarify that she was actually Punk 2, one of 6 Vegapunk clones, before things got spicy. Punk 1, Shaka, called in and shut her down. He told Lilith to quit playing pirate because Zoro and Robin were not the ones to mess with, realizing she was about to get folded. Lilith backed off, and Shaka, curious about the Straw Hats, let them in. The giant mecha flew them to the lab phase while Lilith explained how the tech worked, the island's layout, and the fact that the lower area was where the regular folks lived. The crew, except for Zoro and Brook, who stayed behind, got fresh new outfits. Meanwhile, Zoro and Brook were just chilling, sipping tea, and casually kicking Caribou off the ship despite his protest that the island was government-controlled. Over on Luffy's side, after stuffing their faces, Atlas flew off to fight holograms. Yes, that was a real thing. While the group stumbled upon a clothes dispenser and got some new drip. But the minute they stepped out, a police-style pacifista rolled up, ready to throw hands because they hadn't paid. Luffy was about to swing, but Bonnie stopped him, revealing through actual tears that Kuma was her father. They dodged the pacifista by using Bonnie's fruit to turn themselves into old men and children. Confusing the bot, Jinbei then dropped some history, saying Kuma was a former king who got exiled, then joined the Revolutionary Army before getting captured. Vegapunk took an interest in him, got him free as a warlord, but in exchange, he had to give up his body for science. Bonnie wasn't buying it. She found an old beam saber in a junk pile and insisted her dad wouldn't have just thrown his life away like that, adding that Kuma belonged to some mysterious race no one knew about. Meanwhile, out at sea, a world government ship was pulling up to Egghead. On board were Rob Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy, casually discussing their latest assignment: assassinate Vegapunk. Turns out, the old man had split himself into 6 separate beings because he was too busy to be just one guy. The CP0 agents were also delivering S-Bear, another Seraphim, while making sure to wipe out all the Vegapunks without wrecking the lab. Lucci was getting a little too curious about why this hit was ordered, especially after what happened to Lulusia. But the others warned him to stop asking questions before he ended up on an accidentally erased list. Meanwhile, Vegapunk's main body, Shaka, called Dragon, basically saying, "Yeah, I think my time's up." Over at Winter Island, things were going sideways for the Heart Pirates. Their submarine got attacked, and suddenly, everyone started turning into women. Doc Q was out here throwing gender-bending diseases like it was a casual Tuesday. Law, being built different, flexed his haki and reversed it, which also cured his crew before they could breathe. Van Augur teleported Jesus Burgess to the island, and Burgess wasted no time showing off his insane strength by yeeting a mountain at them. Law blocked it with his Ope no Mi, but then Blackbeard himself pulled up, riding stronger, a flying Pegasus. Teach wasn't here for small talk. He was after Law's road Poneglyph copies. Law immediately used his awakened power. Our room, amputate, slicing stronger in midair, but Teach countered by shaking the entire island with his Gyurash attack. Doc Q tried to take out the Heart Pirates with exploding apples, but Shach just casually spit a jet of water to stop them. Meanwhile, Bepo spotted Van Augur and had Jean Bart block his sniper shot at Law. Then it was time for the main event, Law versus Blackbeard. Law hit him with K-Room, Shock Willy, but Teach, never one to go down easy, got teleported by Augur and immediately hit back with Kuruzu, pulling Law in for a clash. While that was going down, the Heart Pirates took advantage of their aquatic skills, launching an underwater assault on the Blackbeard Pirates ship. Back at Marine HQ, Fleet Admiral Sakazuki was losing his mind, knowing full well that this battle was happening, but he couldn't do anything about it. The Straw Hats pulled up to the lab phase, and the first thing they did was geek out over the futuristic tech. Escalators, phase through doors, fire-powered everything. Egghead was basically a sci-fi fever dream. Lilith was breaking it all down, but she disappeared, leaving them to be guided by Edison's voice over the speakers. Then, out of nowhere, they ran into S-Shark, aka Seraphim Jinbei. At first, they were confused, like, wait, why is Jinbei trying to body us? But S-Shark didn't wait for answers. Dude came swinging with lasers, Fishman karate, Lunarian durability, and some slippery abilities that looked way too similar to Center Pink's Sway no Mi. The crew tried to fight back, but S-Shark was built like an endgame boss before things got worse. Shaka stepped in, ordered S-Shark to stand down, and casually magnetized the crew's shoes to the floor like it was nothing. Turns out, Lilith, Edison, and Pythagoras were just running tests, using the Straw Hats as live crash dummies. Shaka then hit them with the ultimate plot twist. Frankie was hyped about Egghead looking like the future, but Shaka shut him down, saying this was actually an island of the past, and not just any past 900 years ago past. He dropped the Void Century bomb, theorizing that Ohara discovered the truth about an ancient kingdom that went to war with the 20 nations that later became the world government. The government won, erased that kingdom from history, and now acted like it never existed. The crew was speechless. Sanji pointed out that knowing this made them walking targets, and Shaka casually agreed, which did not help the mood. Even though he called it a theory, he threw it back at Robin, saying that if the government nuked Ohara over a theory, that pretty much confirmed it was true. Robin wasn't buying that he got this info from the government, so she asked how he knew. That's when Shaka dropped another shocker: the will of Ohara still existed. Shaka explained that he once knew Professor Clover, an absolute legend in archaeology whose charisma made Ohara the holy land of history nerds. After the government wiped it off the map, Vegapunk visited the ruins to pay his respects and found something incredible: a lake filled with books. The Oharan scholars had thrown their knowledge into the water, securing their legacy even after their deaths. Robin, remembering the moment she left her mother and colleagues behind, started tearing up. She confirmed that the Ohara scholars did uncover the truth, then asked where the books were now. That's when Shaka revealed that the books were salvaged by a crew of giants from Elbaf, led by a mysterious, bandage-wrapped leader. Vegapunk only found out who they were thanks to Dragon, who had also come to pay respects. Back then, Dragon was just a captain of the Freedom Fighters, and he was furious both at the government for their brutality and at Vegapunk for working with them. Vegapunk, always the realist, admitted that Dragon's ragtag group didn't have the money to fund his research, so he went where the resources were. Dragon wasn't trying to hear all that and declared that he would build an army to fight back. Vegapunk doubted it, calling Dragon too much of a pacifist, but before the year was over, Dragon, Kuma, and Ivankov officially formed the Revolutionary Army. The Straw Hats could barely process all this. But Robin had one last question: was the giant leader Saul? Shaka didn't confirm or deny it, but he did say the giant was alive and in hiding, bringing Robin to happy tears. Before they could have a moment, Shaka yanked them away using their magnetized shoes and dragged them straight to a monitor room because their captain was currently up to who knows what on the surveillance feed. Luffy's group did what they do best: got lost. But this time, it led them to a massive iron giant in the scrap heap, and of course, Luffy wanted to ride it. Before they could even try, something crashed into the machine, and suddenly, there was a man half stuck in the metal, screaming about his failed experiment. Luffy pulled him out, and the guy immediately recognized Luffy and Bonnie. Bonnie, on the other hand, was not happy because this wasn't just some random dude. This was the original Dr. Vegapunk. Luffy was more impressed by the fact that the guy was floating, and Vegapunk casually explained that their Dom shoes could do the same. Next thing you know, Luffy, Chopper, and the Doctor shot into the air like balloons with no strings. Bonnie wasn't here for the nonsense and demanded to know what happened to his massive head. Vegapunk, with zero shame, said it got too big, so he chopped it off. Luffy hit him with the hard-hitting journalism, asking if that made him stupid now. Vegapunk explained that he was already a genius, but thanks to the Nomi Nomi Nomi, he could store unlimited knowledge. The downside, his brain kept growing non-stop, so instead of carrying it around, he turned it into Punk Records, the giant egg at the top of Egghead. Now, he just uses his apple-shaped antenna to connect to it like Wi-Fi. He also revealed that he split his personality into 6 satellites, and they all update Punk Records daily. His ultimate goal? A world where everyone could access the same knowledge and share one big brain. Jinbei, being the logical one, asked what would happen if bad ideas got in. Vegapunk shrugged it off, saying knowledge was more important. Bonnie wasn't hearing any of that. She pulled a beam saber on him and demanded that he fix her father. Vegapunk, unfazed, told her to turn the saber off because it was a failed experiment. Bonnie wasn't buying it since it cut just fine. Then, right on, a swarm of bugs showed up because, apparently, the saber's light attracts insects. Bonnie took one look and immediately fainted. Chopper checked on her while Vegapunk spiraled into depression, saying he couldn't blame her for wanting him dead. Trying to switch topics, he asked Luffy about the second dragon in Wano. After realizing it was his artificial devil fruit, he got excited until Luffy told him it was pink. At that moment, Vegapunk declared it a failure, not because it didn't work, not because it wasn't powerful, but because it was pink. Absolute perfectionist behavior. Luffy then asked about the Iron Giant. Vegapunk admitted he didn't build it and that it was actually 900 years old. But here's the crazy part: 200 years ago, this thing climbed the red line and almost attacked Marijua before randomly shutting down. Scientists back then decided to preserve it instead of destroying it. After mentioning that he needed to give Bonnie something, Vegapunk dropped a bombshell: he wanted Luffy to take him off Egghead. Meanwhile, in the lab phase, the Straw Hats were watching all of this on the monitors when the Iron Giant came up. Shaka explained that he built the Vegaforce one based on it but couldn't replicate the power source. But there was no time to dwell on that because CP0 was breaking through the Sea Beast defenses. Pythagoras spread the news, and while Lilith suggested throwing the pirates under the bus, Shaka shut that down and told everyone to prepare for battle. Over on Momoiro Island, things got chaotic when Kuma, who was still under repair, suddenly got up and started sprinting toward the coast like his life depended on it. He kept falling, ripping off his medical equipment, and ignoring everyone trying to stop him. Then, without warning, he used his devil fruit to launch himself off the island. Back at Egghead, Luffy asked why Vegapunk wanted to leave. The scientist said he dreamed of creating free, unlimited energy for the world. Luffy was not impressed. Jinbei pointed out that wars happen because of energy shortages, and Vegapunk got all excited, saying energy was everywhere, he just needed to find a way to harness it. Luffy was still not impressed, but here, where it gets wild. Vegapunk's research into energy led him to discover the ancient power source of the Iron Giant, which tied directly into the Void Century. That, combined with Ohara's destruction, pushed him to continue Professor Clover's research. Their conversation got cut short when CP0 finally landed, causing an explosion. Vegapunk quickly wrapped things up, saying the government wanted him gone. After explaining CP0 to Luffy, he once again asked to be taken off the island. Luffy, still focused on the important details, agreed because he thought Vegapunk's head was funny. The scientist then told them to meet him in the lab phase and bring Bonnie before Luffy could say anything else. Vegapunk straight up vanished into thin air. CP0 rolled up to Egghead, and Pythagoras tried to be polite about it, asking them to send S-Bear back and leave. But Lucci wasn't buying it. He straight up accused Vegapunk of covering up the mysterious disappearances of government ships from CP5, CP7 and CP8. Pythagoras was confused, saying those ships left just fine. While Lilith was so mad she almost let CP0 in just to prove them wrong. Instead, they cut communications, but right after. Pythagoras noticed something wild: the sea beast weapons were straight up eating the government ship. Meanwhile, CP0 had already made it onto the island using S-Bear's teleportation powers. Shaka immediately went into boss mode, ordering the researchers to evacuate, Atlas to return, and the Seraphim to mobilize, putting Sentomaru in charge. As the government ship got bodied by sea beast weapons, the CP0 agents debated whether they should take out Jewelry Bonnie since she was rumored to be on the island. Lucci decided they were done with the ship and had S-Bear yeet them onto the island. Once they landed, Kaku, in peak brain-off mode, immediately attacked a giant space monster only to find out it was a hologram. Stussy, who had been here before, casually mentioned that little detail way too late, which made Kaku lose his mind. But he had already committed to the attack, so he tried to Jeppo his way straight into the lava phase. That's when Stussy, once again way too late, told Lucci about the Frontier Doma defense system that zaps anything crossing the double lines with lasers, and just like that, Kaku got absolutely cooked mid-air and crashed back down, looking extra crispy. As Kaku yelled at Stussy for her terrible timing, Atlas charged at CP0. Lucci wasted no time, went full hybrid leopard mode and blasted her with Rokuogen, knocking her out instantly. At that exact moment, Luffy, Jinbei, Chopper, and an unconscious Bonnie just happened to run right in front of them. Luffy and Lucci locked eyes, both realizing they were about to run it back, but before throwing hands, Luffy ran to check on Atlas, asking Chopper to take care of her. Kaku tried to be the voice of reason, reminding Lucci that Luffy was now an emperor, and fighting him without clearance could start a war. But this is Lucci we're talking about, of course. He ignored that and started throwing punches anyway. Over at Marine HQ, Sakazuki got word that the Straw Hats were at Egghead. The Marines assumed Vegapunk had teamed up with them after realizing CP0 was there to assassinate him. Sakazuki then found out that Kizaru was already heading to Egghead on a separate mission, so he told him to hold up and wait for Marine reinforcements. Kizaru, always down for a big fight, immediately ordered every battleship they had to set sail for Egghead. Meanwhile, at Marine Base G14, Vice Admiral Dahl was yelling at Garp over the Den Den Mushi, trying to stop him from doing something reckless, but Garp did not care. He just shouted for Helmeppo, told him they were heading to Blackbeard's Island, Hachinasu, to beat up some pirates and raise Kobe, and then invited him aboard like it was a casual road trip. Over at Red Port, Kuma, after warping himself across the map, crash-landed right into the red line without hesitation. He started climbing it like he was in a speedrun. The Marines immediately started blasting him with mortars, but Kuma didn't even flinch, he just kept climbing. They called for backup, but it didn't matter, Kuma was on a mission. Somewhere else, the Kid Pirates finally spotted Elbaf, meaning they were about to roll up to the land of giants and cause some chaos of their own. Luffy and Lucci were going all out in their awakened forms, and Vegapunk popped up on the monitors, casually asking the Straw Hats what was up with their captain's new power, but even they had no clue. To them, it was just more rubber shenanigans. That's when Vegapunk dropped a knowledge bomb. There was no record of the Gamu Gamu no Mi in any old books. Instead, he connected Luffy's Gear 5 to the legend of Sun God Nika. Then he hit them with the wildest theory yet. Devil fruits are actually the physical manifestation of human dreams for evolution. Every power represents a different future for humanity, but because they're unnatural, the sea hates them. Basically, devil fruits exist because people wanted them to, but Mother Nature said, nah. Meanwhile, Sentomaru pulled up with the Seraphim, thinking he was about to help CP0, only for Vegapunk to expose the agent's real mission to assassinate him. Sentomaru was shook, and Vegapunk wasted no time guilt-tripping him with all the favors he'd done for him in the past. It worked. Sentomaru flipped sides immediately. As the Seraphim joined the fight, Frankie started bawling when he saw S-Shark use Center Pink's ability, thinking his drinking buddy was dead. Vegapunk then explained how he'd been cooking up artificial devil fruits. Zoans were doable but expensive, Mythical Zoans were extra rare, Logias were a total bust, but Paramecias, he cracked the code by using lineage factor to create green blood, which gave the Seraphim their powers. He then casually declared them the strongest form of humanity, as if that wasn't the most terrifying thing ever. Back in the chaos, Lucci was getting clapped even with his awakening. Sentomaru then ordered S-Bear to attack CP0, S-Snake to guide the Straw Hats, and S-Shark and S-Hawk to hold back the agents. Kaku tried to override the Seraphim's orders but realized too late that the Pacifista chain of command had Marines ranked higher than CP0. Before Sentomaru could enjoy his victory, Lucci blasted him with a Shugen to take control of the Seraphim. The guy tried to block it, but Lucci still landed a fatal hit. Luffy, who had just been casually chatting with Sentomaru a second ago, was furious and immediately sent Lucci flying with a Gamu Gamu no Dawn whip. The recoil sent Luffy himself spiraling into the ground like a human drill. As CP0's minions got wrecked by the Seraphim's devil fruit powers, Lucci tried to finish off Sentomaru, but Luffy popped up from underground with a gigantic head and tried to chomp him. Lucci dodged, but Luffy spit rubble at him, using the opening to body him with a Gamu Gamu no Dawn rocket with Lucci down for the count. Luffy regrouped with his crew and promised Sentomaru he'd get Vegapunk off the island. He then hopped onto the vacuum rocket. But as soon as his awakening wore off, he aged up like a deflated balloon. Bonnie woke up totally confused, but before anyone could explain, they reached the lava phase. Bonnie immediately went full rage mode, hunting down Vegapunk and blaming him for the bug attack, demanding he fix her father. The Straw Hats, meanwhile, were questioning why the government wanted the world's smartest scientist dead. Vegapunk flipped the script, asking what they'd do if the world's smartest scientist turned against them. That answer was enough. Back outside, CP finally got control over the Seraphim now that Sentomaru was unconscious. But there was still one big problem: the Frontier Dome's security was straight up unbreakable, so they decided to lock down the island instead. Stussy called out Lucci for picking a fight with an emperor, but Lucci just shrugged and said he didn't see Luffy as one. That confidence was short-lived because out of nowhere, the security system started acting weird. Lucci, smelling a trap, wanted to play it safe, but Kaku saw an opening. They reached the lava phase, spotted the Thousand Sunny, and Kaku immediately launched a Rankiaku at it. Unfortunately for him, Zoro had been napping on the ship and woke up just in time to block the attack. Now CP0 had a whole new problem to deal with. Meanwhile, Bonnie finally caught up to Vegapunk, chasing him down with murder in her eyes, demanding he bring her father back, even though he swore he had a good reason for not doing so. The Vegapunks got together, ready to dip, but there was one big problem: CP0 had locked down the island. Lilith wanted to go full send with violence, but Shaka shut that down. Pythagoras hinted they had a secret backup, but Edison pointed out that helping them would put that ally in the government's crosshairs. Vegapunk didn't care and hit up the mysterious friend anyway, who was down with no hesitation. He then asked the Straw Hats if all 7 of them could hitch a ride, which got mixed reactions. Before they could argue, the Frontier Dome randomly shut down, letting CP and the Seraphim roll in. Nobody knew who did it, but they had no time to worry because things were about to get messy. Meanwhile, Luffy finally caught up with his crew, but the victory was short-lived when he realized he had completely lost track of Bonnie. In the monitor room, the Straw Hats and the satellites watched Zoro and Brook facing off against CP0, thinking it wasn't too bad. But then Shaka dropped the bomb. The Seraphim followed the agents, probably deciding the fight needed more chaos. Lilith and Edison rushed off to try and command them to fight CP0, while Frankie and Sanji followed to back them up. That left Nami and Usopp with Shaka, who started sweating bullets when CP0 told the Seraphim to destroy the lab. Bonnie, meanwhile, was still on the hunt for Vegapunk. When she finally found him, he tried to hide, but she tricked him by turning herself into a crying little kid. The dude fell for it instantly. She then morphed into a buff monster, hit him with a time hack, and turned him into a child too. Now that she had him, she demanded to know why he lobotomized her father. Vegapunk swore the truth would only hurt her and that Kuma had volunteered. Bonnie called Cap, but Vegapunk doubled down, saying he loved Kuma as a friend and was proud of him. Whatever happened was so painful he wished he could forget it. Bonnie wasn't buying it. Then a locked door nearby started beeping. Despite Vegapunk's desperate attempts to stop her, Bonnie melted the lock with oil shock and found a giant paw-shaped bubble inside. Vegapunk recalled a time when he and Kuma theorized that his powers could extract things beyond pain, like memories, but Kuma refused to test it. In the present, Vegapunk warned Bonnie not to touch the bubble, calling it pain. But she knew better. As she reached for it, she was hit with a glimpse of Kuma's childhood running, beaten, desperately trying to escape something, overwhelmed. She got kicked out of the memory world but was determined to go back and understand what really happened to her father. Meanwhile, Zoro was still fighting Kaku, who entered his awakened form, but the swordsman held his ground. Kaku watched the destruction unfold, feeling pretty good about himself, until he suddenly dropped to the ground. Stussy had just knocked him out by sucking his blood. Turns out, she was a clone of Buckingham Stussy from the Rocks Pirates and a secret ally of Vegapunk. Lucci tried to attack, but she dodged and hit him with a surprise Seastone lipstick tube, weakening him before sinking her teeth in. Just like that, CP0 was done. Stussy then called up Shaka, letting him know she had taken care of the agents. leaving the Straw Hats stunned that Vegapunk had a mole inside the world government. Unfortunately, she couldn't undo Lucci's command to the Seraphim, so the lab was still in danger. Zoro and Brook kept holding the line while Lilith and Edison rushed outside. Lilith tried to command the Seraphim, but S-Hawk immediately went for her, and she panicked. Zoro blocked the attack, but she was too scared to try again. Edison showed up just in time, giving the Seraphim the order to stop. S-Shark still tried to laser him, but Sanji saved the day. With that, the attack finally ended. With Lucci and Kaku now tied up in Seastone, Shaka invited Stussy to join the satellites and escape with the Straw Hats. Meanwhile, Luffy and Chopper had their own mission tracking down Vegapunk and Bonnie before things got even crazier. Marco pulled up to Sphinx like, "What's good?" only to find out the Marines had rolled through looking for Whitebeard's treasure. Their captain, Radel, was on full villain timing, threatening to execute the locals one by one if they didn't spill. But just when things got bad, Weevil showed up like an angry tank, bodied the Marines, and sent them packing. Problem was, they called for backup, and the world government sent Ryakuju, who shut Weevil down and took him prisoner. After hearing all this, Miss Buckin aka Buckingham Stussy, former Rocks pirate, ex-MADS scientist, and Weevil's hyperman, demanded that Marco go raise her son and also tell her where Whitebeard's treasure was. Marco thanked her for holding it down, but she could tell he wasn't convinced Weevil was really Whitebeard's kid, so she was like, "Fine, we'll get Vegapunk to DNA test him." Meanwhile, over on a marine fleet heading to Egghead, Kizaru casually served tea to one of the 5 elders, Saint Jagarsha Satyr. Like this wasn't about to be the most chaotic trip of his life. Back on Egghead, Sentimaru woke up and wasted no time. He still couldn't reach Vegapunk or get any updates, so he decided to go big, deploying all 50 Mark III pacifistas to help the Straw Hats escape with Vegapunk. Meanwhile, Luffy, Zoro, Brook, and Stussy regrouped with the others after Luffy's mission to find Vegapunk and Bonnie ended in failure. Checking the monitors, Shaka spotted Bonnie in room NICU, but Vegapunk was missing. Pythagoras was already searching, and since they couldn't dip without him, Nami suggested they split up to look. Luffy and Zoro stayed behind to babysit the still unconscious Lucci and Kaku as Pythagoras searched. Someone crept up behind him, and before he could react, boom, an explosion rocked the lab. Somewhere in the sky, Morgans got the scoop the world government was trying to assassinate Vegapunk, and Luffy was on Egghead instead of reporting the truth. Morgans, the ultimate clickbait merchant, decided to run a story saying Luffy was holding Vegapunk hostage and waging war on the government. Vivi, who was also there, called him out for lying, but Wapple told her to keep quiet before the government found them. Morgans didn't care. He was all about that bag. Back at the lab, Shaka saw Pythagoras getting jumped on the security feed and tried to call him, but then a shadowy figure destroyed the camera. Luffy also noticed his radio was dead. When he told Shaka, they realized someone was systematically taking out all the surveillance across Egghead. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats split up to search for Vegapunk. Nami, Brook, and Edison checked the 3rd floor of Building A, where Nami got distracted by a jewelry making machine. She tried to pocket a few shiny things but had to leave them behind, though she fully planned on coming back. Robin, Chopper, and Atlas searched another part of Building A, where Chopper geeked out over a factory producing artificial organs. In Building B, Sanji, Stussy, and Jinbei explored the development floor. And in Building C, Usopp, Lilith, York, and Frankie arrived at the spot where Pythagoras got attacked, only to find his severed body. But plot twist, he survived by ejecting from his big body before the hit landed. Then York spotted S-Snake nearby. Pythagoras yelled for her to back off, but it was too late. S-Snake, wielding Hancock's Miro Miro no Mi powers, turned York to stone like it was nothing. When Lilith tried to command her to stop, S-Snake attacked, forcing the group to jump off the platform. Lilith and Edison were confused. Shouldn't they have the highest authority over the Seraphim? Then they realized communications were down, meaning they couldn't reach the main control room. Over in Building A, the lab suddenly got raided by S-Bear and S-Hawk, leaving Shaka just as confused. Luffy and Shaka arrived on the scene to find Zoro barely holding them off while also making sure Lucci and Kaku didn't get vaporized in their sleep. After dodging an attack, Shaka pieced it together. Someone inside the base was ordering the Seraphim to wipe everyone out. Lucci woke up, took one look at the chaos, and said, "Hey, maybe untie me and Kaku so we can help." Luffy and Zoro looked at him like he just suggested eating nails for breakfast. The Seraphim were going full Terminator mode, attacking non-stop. Zoro clocked that S-Hawk had Mr. 1 Super no Mi, meaning this dude was basically a walking sword now. Luffy and Zoro had to drag Lucci and Kaku out of harm's way, but Kaku was still on his just uncuff us agenda. He even promised to put the cuffs back on after, but Zoro wasn't buying it. Shaka straight up asked Lucci what their mission was, and Lucci, being the menace he is, just said, "Kill Vegapunk. The satellites and also Stussy for backstabbing me." At this point, Luffy knew they had no choice. He agreed to free them, but only if they promised not to go after his crew or Vegapunk after the fight. Lucci, being Lucci, hit him with the classic villain response, "I'll just kill you first." But hey, at least they had backup now. Meanwhile, in the basement of the old Devil Fruit Research Lab, Cypher Paul agents from CP5, 7 and 8 were literally rotting. They'd been locked up for 2 months with barely any food or water. Vegapunk woke up in the same cell and was shocked to find out Lucci wasn't just talking nonsense. These agents really had been disappearing. One of them said they were chased back to the island by Vegapunk's own Sea Beast weapons and captured. And then every agent who came looking for them got the same treatment. Vegapunk was stressed because there was no way the world government should have known he was studying poneglyphs. Yet here they were, trying to erase him. Over on Elbaf, a young giant was begging Shanks to let him join the crew, but Shanks was like, "Nah kid, you're too young." Then Rockstar ran in, reporting that someone was scrapping with their allies near the island. Shanks realized he'd been taking way too long to leave and promised the villagers he wouldn't let Elbaf turn into a battlefield. The Red Hair Pirates rolled out, backed by Dorian Broggie, and who was causing all this chaos? Eustace Kid. Shanks sent Rockstar ahead with a message: "Fight now or hand over your road poneglyphs and leave." Out at sea, Kid and Killer realized they weren't even fighting Shanks' main crew, just their allied fleets. Killer reminded Kid that last time they fought, they didn't even get to see Shanks before losing, and Kid lost his arm. Now if they lost again, Shanks' crew would probably finish them off, but Kid wasn't backing down. Back on Egghead, the civilians were panicking, asking Sentomaru why he unleashed the pacifistas. His only answer: "This place is about to get O'Harrid." He just hoped the Straw Hats could get Vegapunk off the island in time. Meanwhile, in the command floor, Luffy, Zoro, Lucci, and Kaku were still throwing hands with the Seraphim. But these things weren't taking damage. Zoro noticed something familiar about them and realized they were built like King. Shaka confirmed that made sense because King real name Arbor was a Lunarian who escaped with Kaido. Zoro, finally putting two and two together, explained that their flames made them basically invincible, but when the flames went out, they could actually take damage. The others roasted him for not figuring this out sooner. While the fight raged on, Shaka slipped away, thinking he finally knew where Vegapunk was. Over in building A, Nami and Zeus were struggling against S-Shark, who had already knocked out Brook and Edison. Nami hesitated because the Seraphim looked like kids, so her attacks barely did anything. Just when S-Shark was about to counter, Sanji flew in with a kick and sent him flying. Over in Building C, Lilith pulled out a bubble gun made with seastone properties, explaining that since the Seraphim's green blood gave them devil fruit powers, it also gave them weaknesses. S-Snake dodged the attack, but Frankie managed to trap her in a bubble. Everything was going great until he fell for her fake tears and let her go. Rookie mistake. She immediately turned most of his body to stone, then did the same to Lilith and Usopp when they tried to stop her. Turns out, even geniuses aren't immune to getting finessed. Deep in the basement lab, Shaka found Vegapunk and the captured Cypher Paul agents. Just as he was about to free them, Vegapunk saw someone else in the room before he could warn Shaka. The mystery figure pulled out a gun, shot Shaka in the head, and destroyed his helmet. Vegapunk could only watch in horror. Meanwhile, on the second floor of Building B, Stussy and Jinbei were still searching for Vegapunk when Stussy called Sentomaru with some devastating news. First, the world government sent CP0. Now a full-on marine fleet was on its way to erase Egghead, all because Vegapunk had been studying poneglyphs and creating weapons strong enough to threaten them. Sentomaru realized a buster call was coming and immediately ordered an island-wide evacuation. Frankie was out here looking like a half-statue, completely useless as S-Snake strolled in and stomped Pythagoras into oblivion. She then turned to Frankie, fully ready to turn him into a lawn ornament. Over in Building A, Robin's group heard the chaos and got worried. Atlas suddenly remembered the abandoned research section and led Robin and Chopper to check it out. Meanwhile, Sanji took over the fight with S-Shark, who quickly learned that punching Sanji was about as effective as punching a brick wall, thanks to his new Germa upgrades. Sanji was just eating those attacks like a breakfast buffet. Luffy's squad quickly realized the Seraphim weren't letting their flames go out, meaning they were still untouchable. Then, S-Hawk straight up disappeared. Lucci figured he was targeting the weaker fighters first, so Zoro ran off to find him since Zoro's sense of direction is a national tragedy. Luffy told Kaku to follow and make sure he didn't end up in another country. That left Luffy and Lucci to handle S-Bear. Elsewhere, Bonnie was still crying over Kuma's memories, completely unaware of the madness happening around her. Flashback time 3 months before all this. Someone from Egghead snitched to the 5 elders about Vegapunk's research and weapons. That call triggered them to send Cypher Paul agents to investigate. Back in the present, the mystery shooter turned out to be York, freshly unpetrified and ready for betrayal. When Vegapunk asked why she was doing this, York hit him with the worst answer possible. She wanted to be a celestial dragon. Yes, she knew they were terrible. No, she did not care. She also admitted that she had planned ahead, realizing the world government wasn't just coming for Vegapunk but all the satellites too, including her. So, she secretly ordered the Seraphim to wipe out everyone except herself, Vegapunk, and the Cypher Paul hostages. She even had S-Snake turn her to stone, earlier just to fake out the others. Now, in real time, the citizens of Egghead were fleeing while a ship with the Blackbeard Pirates flag rolled up, because things weren't chaotic enough already. Over near Elbaf, Kid's crew was facing off against Shanks' allies, but Shanks told them to step aside. After checking Kid's bounty and stats like he was reviewing a game character, Shanks saw a future where Kid's damned punk attack obliterated his fleet. So instead of waiting, he blitzed to the Victoria Punk and sliced the railgun in half before Kid could even fire. That one attack, plus the explosion it caused, knocked out both Kid and Killer, the rest of the Kid pirates. Realizing their captain just got one shot, immediately surrendered and offered their road poneglyph rubbings in exchange for their lives. Shanks took the rubbings and left the Victoria Punk just as Dory and Brogy hit it with a Hakoku, splitting the ship clean in half, and just like that, the kid pirates were no more. Meanwhile, over on Hachinasu, Koby was making his great escape thanks to Perona, who asked for one favor in return: free Gecko Moria, but before he could get too far, the pirates on the island realized he was worth a cross-guild bounty and started hunting him like he was the last PS5 in stock. While running, Koby freed a bunch of captured Marines, then pulled a classic hero move by staying behind to act as a decoy. Blackbeard's commanders Shiryu, Avalo Pizarro, Vasco shot, and the massive San Juan Wolf started discussing how to capture him, all while Wolf just napped through the whole thing. Flashback time again. After the Rocky Port incident, Koby got captured, and Blackbeard planned to use him as a bargaining chip to get the world government to recognize Hachinasu as a legit kingdom, with himself as king. But Koby hit them with a plot twist: he was part of SWORD, meaning he technically wasn't a Marine anymore. Kuzan explained that SWORD members resigned from the Marines and operate independently, meaning the government wasn't responsible for them. So, Koby was basically a useless hostage. Blackbeard didn't care, though, figuring Koby's reputation might still work in his favor. Back in the present, Koby kept running. But then he spotted an explosion across the island. A group of Marines had invaded, and one pirate tried to behead a Marine only to find out the guy was made of clay. Meanwhile, in another part of town, a Marine rear admiral named Kujaku, who also happened to be Tsuru's granddaughter, was using her whip powers to command buildings to move and trap the pirates. Koby got surrounded, and the pirates were ready to blast him, but instead of bullets, flowers came out. Turns out, Hibari was on the scene, using GP flowers to jam their guns. She called over to Prince Gruss, the guy behind the Clay Marines, to confirm Koby was safe, and with that, the chaos on Hachinasu was just getting started. Kujaku and Gruss had the pirates backed into a corner. Literally, Gruss used his clay golems. Kujaku whipped buildings into position, and boom, the pirates were stuck in a makeshift cage. That's when Tashigi and Helmeppo called in the real chaos. They had Garp's ship blast into the air like a Frankie coup de burst, launching straight toward the square before the pirates could even process what was happening. Garp made his grand entrance. He let them know they had seriously messed up by capturing his protege, then flexed his strength by hitting them with a galaxy impact. The punch didn't just knock them out, it basically remodeled the area. Gruss softened the ship's landing with his clay powers, and Garp stepped up to confront the pirates, grumbling about how he wasn't as strong as he used to be. Koby and Hibari ran to greet him, but just as things were looking up, Kuzan pulled up and instantly froze Hibari. The Marines were shocked, and Garp immediately demanded to know what his former student was up to. Flashback time. A year after Akinu and Aokiji's battle at Punk Hazard, Kuzan was chilling in a bar when some of Blackbeard's crew tried to start trouble. He froze them without breaking a sweat, which led to Blackbeard himself showing up for a little chat. They shared drinks, and Devon casually asked about a guy with a burn scar who apparently has a road poneglyph and sails on a black ship that creates whirlpools to keep people away. Shiryu guessed that the guy might be working for the world government to stop pirates from reaching the One Piece, but Kuzan had no clue. Things almost got ugly when Laffit suggested they should just steal Kuzan's devil fruit, but Blackbeard smoothed it over and hit him with a business offer. Since Kuzan wasn't a Marine anymore, why not join the crew? Pirates team up for all kinds of reasons. So what did Kuzan really want? Cut back to the present. Turns out Kuzan took that offer and was now the 10th captain of the Blackbeard Pirates. That meant he and Garp were about to throw hands. Kuzan tried to freeze him with Ice Ball, but Garp just shattered it like it was made of glass and then sent Kuzan straight through the ground with a blue hole punch. Meanwhile, back on Winter Island, things were looking real bad for Law. The Heart Pirates had lost. Their submarine was in pieces, and Blackbeard was standing over Law like he was picking out his next meal. He was debating whether to take the Opop no Mi for himself, sell it, or just force Law to do the eternal life surgery, but before he could decide, Bepo popped a special medicine from Chopper and went full Sulong mode. He knocked Blackbeard back, grabbed Law, and yeeted them both into the ocean before Blackbeard could chase them. Law, barely conscious, didn't want to abandon his crew, but Bepo told him to trust that they'd survive while he focused on keeping Law alive. Over at Marine HQ, Sengoku and Tsuru were reading the news about T-Bone's death, and things weren't looking great. With Cross Guild handing out bounties on Marines, people were starting to turn against them. When Sengoku asked where Garp was, Hina casually dropped that he and Kujaku were on a mission to Hachinasu. Sengoku and Tsuru were immediately stressed. On Karibari Island, Buggy was busy congratulating the guy who killed T-Bone, even though the dude clearly felt awful about it. The guy only did it to help his struggling family, but Buggy assured him that he was now under Cross Guild's protection and his family would be taken care of with the bounty money. As the crew celebrated, one of Buggy's shipwrights announced that their new flagship was complete, but when Buggy saw it, his soul left his body. They had designed it in his image, which was the last thing Crocodile and Mihawk wanted. They immediately dragged Buggy off and beat him for the design choice. Crocodile and Mihawk then got serious, discussing their plans to build a military-like power, but Buggy wasn't feeling it. He thought they were aiming way too low. That's when he started reminiscing about his past with Shanks after Roger's execution. Buggy genuinely thought Shanks was going to follow in their captain's footsteps and become the next pirate king. He was even ready to sail with him, but when Shanks turned down that dream, Buggy felt completely betrayed. He refused to join Shanks' crew, using the excuse of still being mad about losing that treasure map that forced him to eat the Bara Bara no Mi. In reality, he was just heartbroken that Shanks had changed course. But now Buggy wasn't about to sit on the sidelines anymore. While Mihawk and Crocodile were still focused on their small-time ambitions, Buggy grabbed a Den Den Mushi and made a public announcement. Cross Guild was going after the One Piece. Mihawk and Crocodile were immediately furious, but it was too late. Buggy had just put them all on the biggest stage in the world. On Momoro Island, the revolutionaries were just vibing when they spotted a ship rolling in. Turns out, it was Sabo alive and well. Despite Lulusia Kingdom getting obliterated, he had dipped before the destruction, taking a few recruits with him, and managed to send a coded message letting them know he was good. But after that, he kept quiet to avoid the Marines tracking him. When he finally reunited with Dragon and Ivankov, they chatted about Kuma for a bit before getting into the real tea. What Sabo saw at Marijua. Sabo broke it down. He had completed the mission, declared war on the world nobles, torched their symbol, wrecked their food supply, and saved Kuma. Dragon and Ivankov gave him props, especially since it inspired a few kingdoms to start rebelling against the world government. One of those was Lulusia. So yeah, awkward. But they also mourned Cobra, a beloved king whose loss was a huge blow. On top of that, the world government was about to send the God's Knights after them. With Sabo as the #1 target, Sabo shrugged it off. If it helped the cause, he was cool with it. Flashback time back at the Lively. The Revolutionary Army was making moves. Karasu, who actually has the Susu Susu no Mi, Lindbergh and Morley were out here freeing slaves and keeping Fujitora and Ryakuju busy. Meanwhile, Sabo was sneaking around, hunting for the keys to the slave collars. That's when he spotted Kuma with St. Charlos, which was a major problem. At the same time, Cobra went to meet the world nobles, leaving Vivi under CP0's watch. But she wasn't having it after they just stood by and let St. Charlos try to abduct Shirahoshi earlier. As Cobra headed into the Elder's room, Pell and Chaka tried to follow, but the guards shut that down. Cobra told them to watch over Vivi instead, clearly worried she was about to do something reckless. Sabo kept moving through Pangaea Castle, taking out guards until he ran into Jewelry Bonnie, who, surprise, surprise, is Kuma's daughter. Since they had the same goal, they teamed up. Sabo handed the keys off to Karasu and told him to get the slaves out while he handled something else. As Sabo and Bonnie navigated the castle, they overheard guards talking about a mysterious room that no one is allowed to enter, and anyone who sees it disappears. Sounds like bad news, but they had different priorities. Bonnie headed to Egghead, while Sabo made his way back to Kamabaka, promising to save Kuma. Inside the empty throne room, Cobra met with the 5 elders and started dropping history bombs. He brought up the first 20 kings who created the celestial dragons and how they were all supposed to rule equally. But Arabasta's ruler, Nefertari Lily, dipped instead of joining them. The weird part, Cobra found 0 records of her returning home. Instead, her younger brother took over. He asked the elders if they knew what happened to her, but they claimed ignorance, saying all records were lost. Cobra then hit them with the real question: what does the D in people's names mean? He had found it in an ancient letter passed down through Arabasta's rulers, and he wanted answers. Meanwhile, St. Charlos was back on his nonsense, trying to abduct Shirahoshi again. This time, he had Kuma backing him up. Her brothers tried to help but got stopped by Donquixote M. Josgard, who warned that attacking Charlos would put their kingdom in danger. Lucky for them, Sai and Leo did not care. They were pirates. No kingdom ties, no problem. They jumped in, knocked Charlos out cold, and Morley snatched up Kuma before escaping with Karasu. Back in the empty throne room, things took a wild turn. Imu, the shadow ruler of the world, decided to make their presence known. The 5 elders were straight up shook that they were revealing themselves. Cobra was even more shocked because he recognized the name from the ancient letter. It belonged to one of the original 20 kings. When Cobra demanded to know who they really were, Imu ignored him and instead started talking about the D in names. According to Imu, the D-bearers are the enemies of the world government, but modern ones don't even realize it. Then Imu hit Cobra with a major revelation. Lily had made a mistake that caused the poneglyphs to be scattered across the world, triggering the entire pirate age. Cobra was in deep. The elders whipped out their weapons, and Imu hit him with the ultimate pop quiz. Who really wrote that letter? Cobra knew he was done for. He even asked if lying would save him. But nah, his fate was sealed the second he laid eyes on Imu, so he told the truth. Nefertari D. Lily. The second that name dropped, Imu wasted no time and skewered him with a shadowy arrow. Sabo, who had been eavesdropping like a nosy neighbor, immediately jumped in, trying to take out the elders and Imu. But plot twist, Imu straight up ate his fire like it was an afternoon snack. Then things got even crazier. The elders and Imu transformed into full-on nightmare fuel, looking more like monsters than people. Sabo grabbed Cobra and tried to escape, but a nearby camera Den Den Mushi caught him in the act. As they ran, Cobra, clearly on his last legs, dropped a bombshell on Sabo. Luffy saved him back in Arabasta. Then he told Sabo to pass on a message to Luffy and Vivi. They both carry the name of D that hit Sabo hard. He immediately thought back to Ace, who also carried that name before he could process it. Imu fired another arrow, piercing both him and Cobra. Somehow, he dropped Cobra, and the king made one final stand. While Sabo could only watch helplessly, Cobra faced the monsters alone, reciting the last words from Lily's letter before being absolutely demolished. Meanwhile, someone else was watching the horror show, Wapol. Yeah, of all people, Wapol accidentally witnessed everything. One of the elders noticed and turned toward him, but Wapol didn't stick around to chat. He bolted, using his powers to chew through walls like his life depended on it because it did. Back in the council room, the kings were told that Cobra and Wapol wouldn't be attending the next session. Some thought Cobra was just chilling, satisfied that the warlord system was gone, but King Riku and King Neptune, they weren't buying it. Outside, Shirahoshi was finally freed and headed back to the port with her brothers, though she wished she could say goodbye to Vivi first. Vivi, however, had bigger problems. In a guest room in Pangaea Castle, she was tied up and held hostage by CP0. She demanded answers, but they weren't spilling anything. The only thing they told her was that once she disappeared, she'd probably end up as some celestial dragon's new pet. Disgusting. She did get some good news, though. Shirahoshi was safe, and Sai and Leo had gone full Straw Hat Grand Fleet mode. Plus, Fujitora and Ryakuju had thrown hands while Fujitora helped free some slaves. Just as Vivi was trying to figure out an escape plan, Wapol crashed into the room in full panic mode. Without missing a beat, she jumped straight into his mouth before CP0 even realized what happened. Wapol, still running for his life, didn't have time to argue. Meanwhile, his wife, Kinderella, saw this and thought they were eloping. Wild day for her. The Lavely finally wrapped up, but things were a mess. Arabasta's delegation, Pel, Chaka, and Igaram were freaking out because both their king and princess had vanished. They had no idea Cobra was gone for good or that Vivi was currently hiding in the cargo hold of a random ship alongside Wapol. Wapol, needing an out, called up Morgans, the king of tabloid news, and offered him a deal. Pick them up in exchange for some serious scoop. Vivi tried to get Wapol to spill what he saw, but he wasn't talking. Elsewhere, Sabo and Bonnie had also managed to escape and were heading to their own destinations. Then the news dropped, Cobra was dead, and Sabo got framed for it. Over in Marijua, the Elder Stars now officially sat down for a strategy meeting. Saints Jaegarsha Saturn Science and Defense, Marcus Mars Environment, Topman Warcury Justice, Ethan Baron Venus Juro Finance, and Shepard Jupiter Agriculture discussed how to deal with Sabo. Imu pulled up on their call and gave them a new order: activate a weapon called the Mother Flame and wipe out Lulusia Kingdom just because it was nearby. Absolute overkill. Imu also ordered Vivi's recapture. With rebellions breaking out across the world and the warlord system officially dead, the Marines started deploying Seraphims of Doflamingo, Gecko Moria, and Crocodile to crush the uprisings. Meanwhile, Sabo finished telling his story, explaining that when he reached Lulusia, the people there hailed him as a hero for killing Cobra. They overthrew their king, fully believing Sabo had done it on purpose. Thanks to Betty's Kabu Kabu no Mi, Sabo couldn't even correct them. He left with the people who wanted to join the revolutionaries, made his call to Dragon and Ivankov, and that's when he saw it, Lulusia Kingdom getting completely obliterated by some massive shadow in the sky. Ivankov recognized the name Imu as a ruler from the Nerona dynasty. One of the first 20, his theory, they found a way to extend their life unnaturally. As for the weapon that wiped out Lulusia, he suspected it might be something Vegapunk created. But Dragon had a darker theory: what if it was one of the ancient weapons Robin had told them about? And if so, why use it now? Meanwhile, Marijua was in shambles. With their food supply gone, the celestial dragons were starving. The only thing they had left was cake, and that wasn't going to cut it. To make things worse for them, one of their own, Mjosgard, was executed for protecting the Neptune family during the Lively, and leading the execution, none other than the supreme commander of the Gods Knights, Saint Figarland Garling, a former resident of God Valley. Alright, picture this: we're at a marine shipyard, and Branno is flexing the absolute madness that is Garp's training routine. Dude didn't hit the gym, he hit entire battleships with his fists, and not just one, but two. Turns out, Kuzan used to be Garp's gym bro, and they'd spend their mornings punching boats for gains. No hacky, no devil fruits, just straight up raw hands. Legendary behavior. Meanwhile, back on Hachinasu, Garp is in full beast mode. He eats San Juan Wolf into the ocean like he's skipping a rock, and when Vasco Shot tries to burn him with liquor fireballs, Garp just grabs two random pirates and uses them as meat shields. The pirates start sweating because if Garp doesn't destroy the island, Blackbeard will destroy them for letting him try. Kyojaku gives the all clear for the escape, but just as they're about to dip, Kobe hears someone calling for help. Classic hero moment. Except plot twist, it's a trap. Shiryu, the invisible menace, sneaks in and stabs Garp right in the gut. Big mistake. Garp immediately punches him into the Earth's core, but the damage is done. The pirates see Garp bleeding and suddenly get bold. Remembering he's got a cross-guild bounty worth 3 billion, Kuzan steps in like, even if you tied this man up, you still wouldn't take him down. Then he and Garp throw hands literally as they trade hacky punches. Kuzan reminisces about his training days. Back when Garp was like, train with the marine instructors. Kuzan, being the overachiever, was like, Nah, I already clapped them, I need a real challenge. Eventually, Garp gave in and over time they bonded, with Garp even ranting about his family drama. Fast forward, and now they're fighting like it's a tragic anime finale. While that's happening, Avalo Pizarro decides he wants his 15 minutes of fame and starts flexing his Shima Shima no Mi powers, forming giant island arms to crush the Marines. Koby panics, but Garp, bleeding out and still dropping motivational speeches, tells him that justice will prevail. Classic Garp. We cut to a flashback where Garp, being the absolute menace he is, gives a marine ethics lecture. The scenario: an old man and a baby are stranded on an island full of beasts. Who do you save? Koby, ever the good boy, says both. Garp calls that wrong and says you leave the old man and save the baby because life expectancy. Gets chewed out by the instructor, but Garp is just here for chaos. Back to the present, Pizarro's island hand is coming down and the Marines are ready to abandon ship. But Garp has other plans. He lays out a wild plan. He'll create an opening. Helmeppo will cover, Koby will destroy the hand, and Gruss will catch the debris. Koby asks how, Garp just yells at them to move. Kuzan is still in shock that Garp is even standing, and before he can react, Garp pulls off an anime teleport move, smacks him down, then leaps up and hits the island with a galaxy divide. Pizarro, feeling the pain from his own devil fruit, is stunned, and Koby sees his. Gruss asks what the plan is. Koby, no plan, just living up to Garp's expectations. 2 years ago, Garp had a little chat with Helmeppo about Koby's training. Turns out, despite Garp's brutal regimen, Koby still wasn't feeling strong enough, so what did he do? Instead of getting a good night's sleep like a normal person, he snuck out every night to punch battleship bags until his body was basically begging for a break. Fast forward to the present, and now it's Koby's moment. Pizarro is dropping an entire island hand on the Marine ship. The pirates are laughing, and the civilians are panicking. But Koby, he winds up, swings with everything he's got, and lands a honesty impact so strong it completely destroys the island hand and wrecks Pizarro in the process. Everyone watching is straight up speechless, while Garp just laughs like he knew all along. Helmeppo catches Koby midair. Gruss uses his clay powers to shield the ship, and the three of them land safely on board. Tashigi calls for Garp to get on the ship, but Garp tells them to leave without him. Koby wants to turn back, but Garp shuts that down. He stands there, completely surrounded by pirates and Blackbeard's top officers, and Kuzan takes the chance to freeze him with an ice spear just like Saul, but even frozen solid. Garp drops one last message: these young Marines are the future. And that's where Egghead left us, absolute madness. But don't worry, cause the wait is almost over. One Piece is back on April 6th, and I'll be covering every new episode as it drops. So join me as we dive back into the world of One Piece and witness the chaos unfold.